Good morning, St. Francis. Good morning, people of God. It is Friday, the third day of November, 2023, Friday of the 30th week of the year, the 30th week in Ordinary Time, continuing our countdown to the end of our liturgical year, which will end at the end of November this year. Usually the end of November, the last Sunday in November, has been for many years, in the past years, the first Sunday of Advent. But this year it is Christ the King. And so Advent will not begin officially until December. We have no days of Advent in November this year. So it's an interesting kind of twist in the calendar today, this year. There are lots of twists in the calendar this year, especially when the fourth Sunday of Advent falls on Christmas Eve. And so in the morning it's the fourth Sunday of Advent. In the evening, it is the first Masses of Christmas. So just make sure that you know where you're going and what you're doing at those times. The readings for today, it's another frosty morning here in Carolina, although it's going to go up to the 70s on Saturday and Sunday. So it's just ridiculous. So it's a matter of just trying to deal with what's happening and what's going around. But our readings today, again, the letter to the Romans is incredibly long, and it just continues and continues and continues. But today there's an interesting kind of reflection that Paul does in the sense in which he is recognizing that he is moving in a different direction than the people of his origin, than the Jewish people, than the Israelites, in embracing Christ, in embracing the promise that Christ offers, and in recognizing Christ as the Messiah. And so there is this sense in which there's a bit of lament, that Paul has to let go of some of what he was in order to embrace what he is now, as this great missionary, as this great as this great witness, to Christ in the world and what he's doing in his missionary activity, particularly to the Roman people. And again, the city of Rome had a great Jewish quarter to it. There was a great Jewish population in the city of Rome, and so perhaps he is facing a little bit of confrontation and some kind of questions and some kind of dialogue, as to having abandoned, his people, to follow this person that some people believe is the Messiah, some people do not. So it's it's an interesting sort of insight into Paul's own struggle in moving into this new way of understanding God's relationship with humanity. And the thing about it is that Paul continues to pray, for his people. He continues to pray for them and recognize that, again, they are, as we say in the prayers for Good Friday, that Israel is the first to hear the word of God, and that the prayer that is said at Good Friday is that they will continue, to grow in relationship with God, which is a tad bit arrogant for us to say, I know, as Christians, but it's the sense in which we recognize the fact that God still speaks to Israel, and God will never stop speaking to Israel because Israel is chosen, and Paul is kind of echoing that. In the gospel for today, in Luke, we have again another instance, in which the obstinacy and the ridiculous, the absurdity, and whatever it is of the Pharisees is getting in the way of them being able to see God in their midst, and so Jesus is at the home of a scribe, a Pharisee, on the Sabbath having dinner. So they invite him to dinner, which is again, it doesn't mean that the scribes and Pharisees were horrible people. They were trying to kind of understand this man, but their own desire to keep a status quo or a social order together really stops them from being able to see the more, that Christ is, and that Christ is offering to them. And so he heals a man, again, with dropsy. What is dropsy? A lethargy or something like that. But anyway, this man is healed on the Sabbath, and everybody gets angry because, Jesus is doing work on the Sabbath. And the thing is that Jesus says, if your kid falls in a ditch, are you going to leave the kid there over the Sabbath? Don't be idiots. Don't be stupid. And that's really what it is. Again, we let law bring stupidity to us. And that's a thing even for our church to begin to take a look at. We have so many laws and regulations, who can do what, when, how, and where. But is it really promoting stupidity and an inability to see God at work? Or is it truly keeping, things under wraps? Is it keeping social order or the status quo together so that, we don't have any chaos happening in our world? We are so afraid sometimes of listening to the Spirit, of letting the Spirit reveal who the Spirit is in our midst, that we run to laws and rules that are more human-made than they are God ordained to guide our lives. And that is not what we are made for. That is not what we are created for. That is not what brings life, into our faith and into our experiences and into who it is that God asks us to become. To follow the Spirit, to see where God is active, is more important than any law or rule or regulation or whatever it is that we have come up with as human beings. To live in the hope and the joy that that kind of awareness offers us is to give true witness to God in our lives and in this world. A blessed day, St. Francis and people of God. May the Lord give you his peace.